Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech, where we blend casual conversations with insightful discussions on the latest in technology and gadgets. And today we're diving into something that I think a lot of our listeners are going to be pretty excited about.
Yeah.
Because we're talking TVs.
Yeah, always a fun topic.
It is always a fun topic, especially this time of year, because we start seeing like all the new models and all the new tech that's coming out, and we get to kind of like speculate and dream about what our next TV upgrade is going to be.
Yeah, especially with like the Super Bowl and stuff like that. You know, a lot of people, get that itch to upgrade their home theater setup.
Totally. And speaking of new TVs, you sent over this deep dive into LG's 2025 TV lineup.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a lot of information.
It is.
There's a lot to unpack there. So our mission today is...
Yeah, we're going to save you a lot of time and effort from, reading through all the articles and the spec sheets and all that stuff. So we're going to do all the heavy lifting for you.
Exactly. We've done the homework for you.
Right.
So what's fascinating to me right off the bat is, I think a lot of people, when they think about like the best TV, the first thing that comes to mind is like the flagship model, right? The most expensive one with all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, the top of the line.
But what I found really interesting about the deep dive that you shared is that it doesn't necessarily point to the top tier G5 OLED as like the immediate recommendation for most people.
Right. And that's what I thought was so interesting about it too, because, my initial assumption going in was like, oh, the G5 is going to be the one to watch out for. But actually, what really jumped out to me was this idea that the C5 OLED might be that kind of sweet spot for a lot of folks.
Yeah. And when we talk about sweet spot, we're talking like price to performance, right? Like the best bang for your buck.
Absolutely. And when you dig into why it's this comparison to the 2022 LG G2 OLED, that really becomes key. Because the expectation is that this C5 is going to deliver very similar peak brightness to that G2, which was like, around that 1,000 nit mark, which was, really kind of a standout feature of that TV.
So we're talking serious brightness here.
Oh, no way.
Okay,
yeah.
so it's got similar brightness to a model from a couple years ago.
Right.
But what makes it the sweet spot?
Well, so the really compelling part here is that it's expected to come in at a price that's much closer to the older C2.
So you're getting that G2 level brightness,
right?
Basically, for like a C2 price.
Yeah, so you're getting that kind of almost flagship level of brightness without having to pay that flagship price tag.
That's pretty significant in terms of value.
It's huge value, yeah, absolutely.
But it's not just about brightness, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's more to a good TV than just how bright it can get.
Right. You need the brains behind the brightness, I guess you could say.
Okay, the processing power.
Exactly. And since the G2 LG has made some serious advancements on the processing front.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In fact, the source you shared even highlighted how their G4 OLED just recently topped this major European TV shootout. Conducted by Vincent Teo, if you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
So that C5, it's not just bright. It's got the processing power to make that brightness really shine, better upscaling, smoother motion, all that good stuff.
Okay, so it sounds like this C5 is packing some pretty serious tech.
It is.
Like what else is on the spec sheet that kind of caught your eye?
So you've got OLED Evo technology, which is kind of LG's enhanced OLED panel design.
Yeah.
Really focused on brightness and efficiency.
Okay.
They've got their brightness booster technology, obviously, and then for the gamers out there, a super smooth 144 hertz refresh rate.
Oh, nice. Which is got to be buttery smooth.
Oh, yeah. Super smooth. And then they've got this dedicated gaming dashboard built right in so you can like really fine tune your settings and, get the best possible experience for gaming.
Yeah.
And then, of course, for all the future proofing, you could want 4 HDMI 2.1 ports.
Okay.
Which is, the latest standard that allows for all the high bandwidth features like 4K at 120 hertz for, the PS5s and the Xbox Series X's of the world.
Right. So future-proof as it gets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And it sounds like, based on this first look, that this is potentially the brightest C-Series OLED they've ever released.
That's the expectation.
And the upscaling, like you said, seems really impressive.
Yeah.
So it sounds like if you're looking at getting like a premium OLED experience, this is kind of like the new starting point.
It really seems that way.
Yeah.
The source you shared kind of positioned the G5 as more for a specific audience. Like people who are really prioritizing that gallery series design, that's the one that's like super thin and mounts flush to the wall. Or the enhanced integrated sound, or just that absolute top tier of brightness, color, volume, and accuracy. But for most enthusiasts, the C5 seems to offer like the vast majority of that high-end experience without having to pay that top-end premium.
So like 90% of the experience for like 70% of the price?
Exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And speaking of price, the pricing that they announced is pretty eye-catching, especially that sub $1,300 figure for the 42-inch model.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
Like that really lowers the barrier to entry for a premium OLED experience.
For sure. And while the source does mention some potential competition, like the Samsung S9F, for example, the overall tone around the C5 is very positive. It sounds like a TV to watch.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like the LG C5 is like a really strong contender.
Absolutely.
For anyone looking for a premium OLED experience.
It really does seem to strike that fantastic balance.
Yeah. All right. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about another TV in LG's lineup that caught my eye, which is the LG B5 OLED.
Ah, yes. The B series. Always a solid option.
Always dependable.
Yeah.
They've been making the B series for a while now, and it's always been kind of like the more affordable option to get into OLED.
The entry-level OLED, yeah.
Right. And this year it sounds like the B5 is continuing that tradition. But the piece that you looked at mentions that there's some new competition.
There is.
Coming into the OLED space.
Like Philips with their Roku OLED TV.
Okay.
And even Sansui with some more budget-oriented OLEDs.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's definitely becoming a more crowded space.
So it sounds like the B5 has got its work cut out for it.
A little bit,
but,
yeah.
But the point about the established track record of the B series, I think, is worth noting.
Yeah. I mean, it's a known quantity, in a market with some of these newer, potentially less proven options.
Exactly.
So there's something to be said for that.
Reliability is huge.
It is.
However, there's a little bit of a question mark around the retail availability of some of the common screen sizes.
Oh, really?
So the 48, the 55, the 65, and the 77-inch models might only be at select retailers.
Interesting.
The 83-inch, though, is expected to be widely available.
Okay.
So if you're looking for a specific size, you might have to do a little bit of digging to find the B5 in that size.
That's good to know.
But in terms of like the actual tech inside, the guts of the TV, it sounds like the B5 is benefiting from that trickle-down effect that we see a lot in the tech world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where like the tech from the previous generation kind of trickles down to the more affordable models.
Right.
And the source you looked at suggested that its picture quality is going to be similar to a previous C-series OLED.
Yeah, kind of like last year's C model, but at a lower price point this year.
Right. So if you don't need like the absolute bleeding edge brightness, the peak brightness levels, and you just want a really nice OLED picture.
Right.
The B5 is probably going to be priced really competitively.
It's likely going to be priced in that range where you'd be looking at, some of the higher end non-OLED TVs.
Right.
Which is a pretty significant value proposition when you consider, the advantages that OLED brings to the table.
Yeah, like talk about that a little bit. Like why is OLED so special? What are we getting with an OLED TV versus a traditional LED TV?
So with OLED, you're getting those perfect black levels because each pixel can turn completely off independently.
Okay.
So you get incredible contrast and really vibrant colors. And then you also get those wider viewing angles that OLED is known for compared to a lot of LED LCDs. And, not to mention that smooth 120 hertz panel with that super fast pixel response time, which is, awesome for sports and action movies and things like that.
Right. And it sounds like the B5 is making OLED even more accessible.
Totally. It really does seem like that's kind of the theme here is making that jump to OLED more attainable for more people.
Yeah, awesome. So, okay, let's move on to what the source called the sleeper hit of LG's 2025 lineup.
Intriguing, right?
And that is the LG QNED 92.
Ah, yes. The QNED. That branding's been around for a while, but honestly, it hasn't always lived up to the hype.
Right. It hasn't really set the world on fire.
Yeah, it's been kind of like, oh, QNED, okay.
But this year sounds like it could be different.
This year feels different. It seems like LG's really upping their game with the QNED 92.
Like what's different? What makes this one special?
So this one is packing some serious technology.
Okay.
You've got mini LED backlighting, which allows for much more precise control of dimming zones.
Okay.
So you get better contrast. And then they're combining that with quantum dots and their nanocell technology to deliver like a wider, more accurate range of colors.
So we're talking like really vibrant colors, really accurate colors.
Yeah, like popping off the screen kind of colors.
Nice.
And then they're also equipping it with a lot of the same premium features that you find on their top OLED models.
Oh, wow. So they're not treating this like a second-class citizen?
No, they're giving it the premium treatment.
Okay. And what about the picture quality? Because I know that's been kind of a sticking point with QNED in the past.
Right, so the initial impressions of the picture quality are actually surprisingly good.
Oh.
The source described it as intensely bright, really colorful, with impressive backlight control, deep black levels, strong contrast. Like, it seems like a significant step forward for the QNED series.
So they've really addressed some of the shortcomings of previous QNED models.
It seems that way, yeah.
Okay, and what about the processing power? What kind of processor does this thing have?
So it's got their Alpha 8 Gen 2 processor, which is also getting some really positive feedback for its upscaling capabilities.
Okay, so this is like the same processor that's in their OLEDs.
So it's similar technology, but the source did point out that the slightly lower alpha number compared to the OLED models is just a reflection of the different processing requirements of an LED-based display versus an OLED.
So it's not like a lesser processor. It's just
it's tailored for the specific display technology.
Yeah.
But the key takeaway here is that if this QNED 92 receives the critical attention it deserves, it could be a real sleeper hit for people who, for whatever reason, aren't completely sold on OLED.
What if they're worried about burn-in?
Yeah, if they're worried about burn-in, or, you know, maybe they just prefer the look of an LED, LCD, whatever the reason, this could be a really compelling alternative.
Okay, so the QNED 92 is like a potential disruptor in the premium TV market.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely a TV to keep an eye on.
All right, so we've talked about the C5, the B5, the QNED 92. Yep. Now it's time for the main event, the TV that everyone's been talking about, the LG G5 OLED.
The big kahuna.
And we've seen some early glimpses of this TV, but let's really dive deep into what makes this one so special based on the deep dive that you shared.
Okay, so the core innovation here is the new panel technology that LG Display has developed. They're calling it RGB primary tandem OLED, or sometimes just tandem OLED.
Okay.
And some in the industry are referring to it as a 4-stack OLED panel. What's important to understand here is that this marks a pretty significant shift from the traditional WRGB OLED technology that they've been using for the past 11 years.
Okay, so this is not just like an incremental upgrade. This is like a
fundamental
a whole new technology.
Yeah.
And how does this new panel technology work? Like what's the magic behind it?
So essentially, they're stacking multiple layers of light-emitting diodes, which essentially doubles the light output potential, and that leads to brighter, more vibrant colors.
So it's not just about getting brighter; it's about getting brighter and
better color
and more colorful.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So that's tandem OLED.
That's tandem OLED.
But I remember even in previous years, we've seen advancements in OLED technology, like microlens array or MLA. What were the limitations that they were still facing with MLA?
So while MLA was really effective at boosting brightness by focusing more of the light generated towards the viewer, it didn't actually make the OLED panel itself brighter at a fundamental level.
Oh, I see.
And it didn't really significantly enhance the brightness, purity, or saturation of the colors at those higher luminance levels.
Okay, so MLA was kind of like a workaround.
It was kind of a workaround, yeah.
But tandem OLED is actually addressing the root of the issue.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, tandem OLED is tackling it head on.
Interesting, and it sounds like the results are pretty impressive.
Yeah. The source you shared really emphasized that the improvements are like immediately apparent when you see the G5 in person.
Oh, wow. So you're like, wow, this is different.
Yeah, it's not subtle.
And LG is really leaning into this new technology.
Oh, yeah.
With a new name for their brightness boosting technology on the G5.
They're calling it Brightness Booster Ultimate.
Okay.
Which, you know, that definitely suggests a pretty substantial upgrade.
Yeah, it's not Brightness Booster Plus, it's Brightness Booster Ultimate.
Ultimate.
Yeah, this is the final form.
Exactly.
What you're telling me is this G5 is going to be ridiculously bright.
It's going to be very, very bright. Okay. And the colors are going to be stunning.
And this is all thanks to tandem OLED.
All thanks to tandem OLED.
Wow. Okay. And how does this G5 stack up against the competition? Because I know, like, Samsung has been making waves with their QD OLED technology.
Right. So the piece you reviewed basically framed the G5 as LG's direct response to QD OLED.
Okay.
And the suggestion is that it either closes or entirely eliminates any performance gap that might have existed.
Between LG's OLED and Samsung's QD OLED.
Okay.
Okay, so they're going head-to-head.
Yeah, they're going head-to-head.
Okay. And I know LG has a pretty good reputation for their image processing.
Oh, yeah. Remember those accolades the G4 got in those TV shootouts? They know what they're doing when it comes to processing.
So it sounds like the G5 could be a real contender for the title of Best TV of 2025.
It's definitely in the running.
But of course, all this technology comes at a price.
Of course.
What are we looking at price-wise for the G5?
So the source does mention premium TV, premium pricing.
Yeah.
So, expect to pay a premium for this one.
But for people who have the budget and are looking for the absolute best, it sounds like it's probably a pretty safe bet.
As long as there aren't any unforeseen issues in mass production, sometimes that happens.
Right.
But assuming everything goes smoothly, it sounds like a solid choice.
Okay. Are there any other drawbacks or things that people should be aware of before they pre-order this thing?
So the one thing that the source pointed out that might be relevant to some viewers is the continued absence of a next-gen TV tuner.
Okay.
So if that's something that's important to you, you might want to keep that in mind.
Okay. And what about the remote? I know LG has their Magic Motion remote.
Yeah. So it sounds like they redesigned the Magic Motion remote.
Okay.
And it reportedly feels good in the hand. But the reviewer did express a desire for an option to disable the motion control features.
Right, because sometimes those motion controls can be a little finicky.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to point and click.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it sounds like LG is also incorporating some new AI-powered picture quality enhancements.
Yeah, they're always pushing the envelope with their processing.
And there was one detail that really stood out to me, which was the G5's ability to boost the lower end of HDR content.
Oh, yeah. That's a cool feature.
So essentially, it's making those darker, more nuanced scenes in HDR movies and shows more visible.
Right.
Especially in brighter daytime viewing conditions.
Yeah, so you don't lose all that detail.
Right. And they're doing it without sacrificing the artistic intent of the creators.
Yeah, trying to strike that balance.
So that sounds like a really smart feature.
Yeah, I like that.
And the MSRP pricing for the G5 seems to be in line with expectations. It's a premium TV. It's priced accordingly.
Yeah, right in line with the top-tier offerings from Samsung and probably what we'll see from Sony later this year.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like LG is bringing a pretty compelling lineup to the table in 2025.
They really are. Yeah, strong contenders at various price points and performance tiers, each with, their own unique technological advantages.
Yeah. So we've got the C5, which sounds like a fantastic value. We've got the B5, which is making OLED more accessible. We've got the QNED 92, which is like a potential dark horse. And then we've got the G5, which is just, the king of the hill.
Yeah, the flagship.
So it really just comes down to what you, the listener, are prioritizing.
Right.
What are your needs? What's your budget? What are you looking for in a TV?
What are those must-have features?
Exactly. And hopefully this breakdown has given you a good starting point.
Yeah, some food for thought.
To start thinking about your next TV upgrade.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, thanks for tuning into Byte-Sized Tech. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more fun tech discussions.
And let us know in the comments which of these new LG TVs caught your eye.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
We'll catch you in the next one.